Beloved, life is governed by what you hear and what you believe. The ear is not just a physical organ, it is a spiritual gateway. When a man hears the wrong thing, his destiny begins to tilt in the wrong direction. But when a man hears truth, when a man hears light, when a man hears faith, that man will rise no matter the situation. Listen carefully, there are two kinds of hearing. There is hearing with the outer ear, and there is hearing with the spirit. One informs the mind, but the other transforms the life. And what you choose to believe after hearing is what decides your reality. The strength of a man's believing is not in his emotions, but in the quality of what he has heard. You cannot believe beyond what you have heard. Faith does not come by wishing. Faith does not come by positive thinking. Faith comes by hearing. And when hearing produces faith, faith produces strength, stability, and possibilities. Many destinies are weak not because they lack potential, but because their believing is weak. And their believing is weak because their hearing is wrong. If all you hear is fear, if all you hear is failure, if all you hear is impossibility, soon your life will mirror exactly what you have been hearing. Hear me, right believing is not just mental agreement, it is alignment. To believe rightly means to bring your heart and your actions into agreement with truth. Right believing empowers you to walk above circumstances. It fuels courage in the face of storms. Every giant in destiny is a product of two things: what he heard and what he chose to believe. If you want to change your life, change what you are hearing. Saturate your atmosphere with words of life, words of light, words of possibility. You cannot keep hearing weakness and expect strength. You cannot keep hearing failure and expect victory. And this is the mystery. When you hear truth long enough, you begin to believe. When you believe long enough, you begin to act. And when you act consistently on what you believe, your life becomes a testimony. So beloved, guard your hearing, because your hearing determines your believing, and your believing determines your living. The ear is not just for sound, it is a gateway, a portal, a door that determines what enters into your life and what stays out. Every man's life is a reflection of what he has been hearing, directly or indirectly. When a child grows up constantly hearing words of love, affirmation, and encouragement, that child grows with confidence. But when another grows up hearing insults, abuse, and rejection, even if that child has potential, he will walk through life carrying an atmosphere of defeat. What you hear is silently programming you, whether you are aware or not. Think about it. When someone tells you, you can do it, you have what it takes, don't stop here. Those words carry more than sound. They enter into your spirit, and suddenly you feel like standing again, even when you were about to give up. But when someone tells you, you are nothing, you will never succeed, this dream is impossible, the words also enter. And very soon you begin to shrink, not because the dream was impossible, but because what entered your ears created a picture of defeat in your mind. Life does not change simply because you desire it. Life changes because of the information you permit into your spirit. Your ear is that door. When you sit with people who constantly speak fear, your ear is receiving fear. When you sit with people who constantly complain, your ear is receiving complaints. And before long, you start talking like them, reasoning like them, living like them, because hearing is the seed of becoming. Let me bring it closer. Imagine two students writing the same difficult exam. One has been hearing all week from his friends that the subject is impossible, that no one ever passes it, that it is useless to try. The other has been hearing encouragement from a mentor. Prepare well, stay focused. It is tough, but you can pass. Both sit for the same exam, but their hearing has already created two different outcomes. One writes with fear, already defeated inside. The other writes with courage, already seeing the possibility of success. Their results will reflect not just their preparation, but their hearing. Your ear does not just receive sound, it shapes pictures in your mind. Every time you listen, you are allowing someone else to paint on the canvas of your destiny. And if you do not control what is being painted, you will wake up one day and see a picture you never wanted. But it came from the voices you entertained. Have you noticed that after watching the news full of tragedy and crisis, your mood changes? Fear quietly creeps in. You start imagining danger everywhere. Why? Because your ear just received an atmosphere of fear. On the other hand, have you noticed that after hearing a motivational message or an inspiring story, something rises in you? Suddenly, you feel unstoppable, like nothing can hold you back. What changed? Your ear was the gateway, and your hearing became fuel for your believing. There are people today walking in timidity, not because they lack talent, but because for years they have only heard, you can't. And there are others breaking barriers, not because they are the most skilled, but because they have constantly heard, less you can. Beloved, it is dangerous to expose your ears carelessly. One wrong sentence can plant a seed of doubt that may take years to uproot. But one right sentence can plant faith that carries you through storms. A man who keeps hearing, money is evil, rich people are wicked, success is pride, will never rise above poverty, because his ear has locked his mind into limitation. Another who keeps hearing, wealth is a tool, success is influence, you can rise and still be humble, will boldly pursue greatness, and his life will reflect that believing. Both were shaped not first by what they saw, but by what they heard. Let us think about relationships. A young woman who has always heard, all men are bad, every relationship ends in pain, may struggle to trust even when she meets someone genuine. Her hearing has programmed suspicion. On the other hand, a man who has always heard, marriage can be beautiful, love can last, trust is possible, will approach relationships with hope and openness. Do you see how the ear is shaping reality? Even in your personal life, what you say to yourself and what you hear yourself repeat is designing your destiny. When you wake up and say, today is going to be tough, nothing good happens to me, your ear hears it, your spirit absorbs it, and your life aligns with it. But when you wake up and say, today is a new day, I expect favor, I expect open doors, your ear also hears it, and suddenly your environment begins to align with that expectation. The ear is a spiritual gateway that shapes destiny. This is why environments matter. This is why voices matter. If you want to rise, sit where rising is spoken. If you want to be strong, listen where strength is released. You cannot spend all your time around people who speak defeat and expect to live in victory. Look around your life right now. The quality of your hearing has been secretly programming your results. If you do not like what you are seeing, change what you are hearing. Your future will not respond to your intentions, it will respond to your instructions. And your instructions come from your hearing. The ear is a gate, it admits and it preserves. It can either be a door to light or a door to darkness. It can open you to fear or it can open you to faith. When you understand this mystery, you will never again treat words casually, because you know that every time you are hearing, your destiny is being shaped. Hearing with the spirit is not the same as hearing with the ears. Many people hear sounds, they hear voices, they hear information, but nothing changes in their lives because the hearing ended in the mind. True transformation begins when hearing bypasses the surface of the ear and touches the depth of the spirit. The spirit is where conviction is born, where faith rises, where change begins. Have you ever sat in a meeting where everyone was listening to the same words, yet only a few people walked away transformed? It was not because the speaker chose some and ignored others. It was because while many were hearing with the ear, a few were hearing with the spirit. The spirit is like fertile ground, and when words fall on that ground, they do not remain as words, they become life. Think about daily conversations. Sometimes someone can tell you, of everything will be fine, and you smile politely, but deep inside you know it never reached you. And yet another day, someone says the same words, everything will be fine, and suddenly tears fill your eyes, strength rises within you, and you believe it. What changed your spirit heard it this time. Hearing with the spirit is what takes a statement from being a sound to becoming an anchor for your soul. This is why two people can face the same challenge, hear the same encouragement, but respond differently. One says, oh yes, I know it is true, I can rise again. While the other says, I don't think so, it won't work for me. The same words were spoken, but one person's spirit caught it and the others did not. Every transformation in history began with a word that entered someone's spirit. When people hear words of vision, some dismiss them as ideas. But those who hear with their spirit suddenly receive a picture of what could be. That picture begins to drive them, even when resources are not available, even when people doubt them. When a young entrepreneur hears, it is possible to start small and grow big, if his spirit catches it, he begins to see himself building, creating, expanding. His environment may not yet agree, but his spirit has already seen a future that his eyes will one day behold. Consider the example of a young person growing up in poverty. He hears many voices saying, no one from this background ever succeeds, just manage life. If he listens only with the ear, he will accept that as final. But if one day he hears a voice saying, you can break out of this, you can rise above your background, and his spirit receives it, suddenly something shifts. He begins to dream differently, to act differently, to prepare differently. He no longer measures his future by his present condition, because his spirit has heard a superior reality. There is a difference between information and revelation. Information enters the ear, but revelation enters the spirit. Information makes you aware, but revelation makes you transformed. When people receive only information, they can quote things, they can explain them, but their lives remain the same. When people receive revelation, their actions, their attitudes, their results begin to change because the spirit has been touched. Hearing with the spirit requires focus. Many people are too distracted. They only catch sounds but miss essence. It is like sitting in a classroom where the teacher is explaining the secret to passing the exam, but the student is busy doodling in his notebook. He hears the sound, but his spirit is not receiving. Then another student, paying attention, suddenly grasps the idea and says, no, I understand. That understanding goes beyond memory. It shapes his confidence and determines his success. Your spirit is like soil and words are seeds. When you only hear with the ear, it is like dropping seeds on the surface of the ground. They can be blown away, trampled upon, or forgotten. But when you hear with the spirit, the seed enters deep, and soon it begins to germinate. That is why people who have truly heard with the spirit cannot be talked out of their conviction. You may argue with them, you may mock them, but the seed is already growing inside, and in time, fruit will appear. Let us take relationships as an example. When someone tells you, you are valuable, you are worthy of love, you may nod and smile, but until your spirit hears it, you will still live in insecurity. That is why some people hear compliments every day but still feel worthless. The words never went beyond their ears. But the day your spirit hears and receives, you are valuable, suddenly you walk differently. You carry yourself differently. You stop settling for less because transformation has taken place inside. The reason why many people remain the same year after year is because their hearing stops at the level of sound. They attend seminars, they listen to advice, they even read books, but they do not pause to allow the words to sink into their spirit. True hearing is not rushed, it is meditative, it is intentional. It is like chewing food until it dissolves into strength. When you hear with the Spirit, words become part of you, they mix with your identity, they alter your thinking patterns, and they govern your decisions. Have you noticed how in moments of crisis, what you truly heard with your spirit comes alive? When others are panicking, you remember a sentence you once received deep within, and it gives you calmness. When others give up, you hear that inner echo, keep going, there is more, and you continue. That is not just memory, that is the Spirit releasing what he once received. Hearing with the Spirit is what produces transformation. Transformation is not about forcing yourself to act differently, it is about becoming different from the inside. Once the Spirit has caught it, the behavior will follow naturally. A man who has heard with his spirit that discipline produces greatness will no longer struggle endlessly with laziness because his conviction has changed. A woman who has heard with her spirit that her dreams are possible will stop doubting herself because her conviction has changed. Every true change is born from the Spirit. You cannot believe beyond the quality of what you hear. This is a truth that shapes destinies in silence. The strength of your belief is not measured by how much you desire something. It is measured by the kind of information that has been permitted to enter your life. Belief is like a tree, but hearing is the seed. And no matter how fertile the soil of your heart is, if the seed planted is wrong, the tree that grows will never bear the fruit you expect. Think about this carefully. A child who grows up constantly hearing, you are intelligent, you are capable, you can become anything, soon begins to believe it, not because he has seen his future, but because the quality of what he has been hearing is shaping the vision of his future. That child will approach challenges with courage because his belief system has been fed with quality information. Now take another child who hears day after day, you are a failure, nothing good comes out of you, stop dreaming big. That child begins to believe in limitation, not because it is true, but because the quality of what he has heard is poor. Later in life, both children stand at the same door of opportunity, but one walks in with confidence while the other walks away in fear. What made the difference? Not their potential, but the quality of their hearing. Belief is the product of consistent exposure. You cannot wake up one morning and believe strongly in something you have never heard or never understood. That is why marketing works. That is why advertisements keep repeating the same message. They know that the more you hear it, the more you start believing it, and the more you believe it, the more you will act on it. If this principle works in business, how much more in life and destiny? You cannot believe beyond the quality of what you hear. Imagine someone wants to become financially free, but all he ever hears from the people around him is, money is scarce, opportunities are finished, only corruption brings wealth. That man may work hard, but inside his belief system is an invisible chain pulling him back, because the quality of his hearing has programmed scarcity into his subconscious. Now place another man in the same environment, but he hears, wealth can be created, opportunities are everywhere. Your gift can make room for you. He may start with little, but soon his belief system begins to produce bold actions. He looks for opportunities others ignore. He takes risks others fear. And sooner or later, his belief births results. Daily life proves this principle again and again. Why do some people rise after failure while others never try again? It is because of what they heard after the fall. If after failing an exam a student hears, you are not smart enough, maybe this is not for you, his belief collapses and he may never attempt again. But if another student hears, failure is not final, learn from this, prepare better, you can still win, his belief is strengthened and his comeback becomes greater than his setback. Same exam, same failure, different hearing, different belief, different destiny. Belief is not built in isolation. It is built by the voices you allow to echo in your life. If you hear smallness every day, you will believe in smallness. If you hear greatness consistently, you will believe in greatness. Have you noticed how athletes often listen to coaches who tell them, you can break this record, you can win this race? It is not just training the body, it is feeding the belief of the spirit. The body cannot outperform the belief in the mind. Consider relationships as well. Someone may tell a young man, all marriages end in pain, don't waste your time. Another person may hear, marriage can be fulfilling, commitment and love can build something beautiful. Two young men grow up, one avoids marriage altogether because his belief has been poisoned, the other steps into it with hope and builds a family that becomes an example. What was the difference? The quality of what they heard shaped the quality of what they believed. Your ear is a gate, and whatever consistently enters that gate becomes the architect of your belief system. And hear this, your belief system is the compass of your life. You will always move in the direction of your strongest beliefs. If you believe you are too weak, you will never attempt great things, even if strength is available. If you believe you are too late, you will not start, even if time is still on your side. If you believe you are capable, you will rise, even when everything around you looks impossible. You cannot believe beyond the quality of what you hear. That is why environments matter. That is why mentors matter. That is why the voices you permit around you matter. Because every word is a seed, and every seed has the potential to grow into a tree that governs your life. You must ask yourself, what am I hearing daily? Who's speaking into my ears? What atmospheres am I sitting under? Look at the workplace. An employee who constantly hears from his boss, you are replaceable, you are not valuable here, may carry skill, but his belief about himself begins to shrink. He will not take initiative, he will not shine, because he does not believe he can. Yet another employee may hear from a mentor, you are gifted, your ideas can change this company, don't be afraid to step forward. Suddenly his creativity blossoms, his confidence grows, and soon the same workplace begins to recognize him. This is the same principle in personal health. A patient may hear, this sickness cannot be cured, it will only get worse. And soon, even his will to fight dies because his belief has been crushed by what he heard. But another patient may hear, it is possible to recover, your body can heal, others have overcome this. And suddenly, courage rises, energy comes, and the body responds to that belief. Your belief is not neutral. It is either being strengthened by quality words or being weakened by poor words. If you feed on gossip, negativity, and fear, your belief will shrink. If you feed on truth, courage, and possibility, your belief will expand. And the level of your belief determines the level of your results. Belief is the bridge between hearing and becoming, but that bridge is only as strong as the quality of material used to build it, and that material is the quality of what you hear. Faith is not by wishing, it comes by hearing truth repeatedly. Many people think faith is a sudden feeling, a moment of excitement, or a random spark of confidence that comes and goes. But true faith is not an emotion, it is a conviction. And conviction is not born out of thin air. It is built layer upon layer through constant exposure to truth. Wishing may give you temporary motivation, but wishing alone cannot carry you through the storms of life. Only faith can, and faith comes when truth is heard again and again until it settles deep within you. Think of a farmer planting seeds in his field. If he throws one seed and walks away, there may never be a harvest. But when he plants again and again, season after season, and waters consistently, the ground responds. In the same way, hearing truth once may inspire you, but it may not change you. When you hear it repeatedly, when it echoes into your mind and spirit over and over, it begins to shape you. It becomes part of your identity, part of your belief system, and soon it produces results that no mere wishing could ever bring. Have you noticed how a child learns language, not by wishing to speak, but by hearing words every single day? The repetition creates understanding, and soon the child begins to believe he can speak, and then he actually does. Imagine if that child only heard a few scattered words once in a while, he would never develop fluency. This is the same with faith. You do not become strong in faith by hearing occasionally. You become strong when the truth is repeated until it becomes your natural vocabulary. Life will always test what you claim to believe. It is in those moments of pressure that you discover whether you were only wishing or whether faith has been built. When challenges come, wishing collapses quickly, but faith stands firm because it has been reinforced through repetition. A student who only wished he could pass will panic when the exam question looks tough, but a student who has heard the truth repeatedly that if you study, if you practice, you can succeed, will sit with confidence because his mind has been trained to believe in possibility. Faith is not an accident, it is a product of training. Think of an athlete preparing for a big race. He does not wish his body into strength, he trains daily, repeating movements, repeating discipline, repeating effort. And that repetition builds muscle and endurance. In the same way, your spirit does not grow by wishing. It grows by hearing truth again and again until endurance is formed within. Everyday life shows us this. Have you ever noticed how advertisements work? They keep repeating the same slogan, the same idea, until you cannot forget it. After hearing it enough, you start believing that product is necessary for your life. Repetition of words has the power to create belief. Now imagine if you filled your ears daily with truth about courage, truth about possibilities, truth about resilience. After a while, you would not just wish to be strong, you would actually become strong because repetition of truth has built a conviction inside you. Faith is not by wishing, it comes by hearing truth repeatedly. A person may say, I wish to be confident, but if all he ever hears around him are words of fear, criticism and limitation, that wish will die. But if he surrounds himself with voices that say, you are capable, you can rise, keep going, and he hears those truths again and again, confidence will be built without force. The environment of repetition is the womb of faith. Think about a man trying to build a business. If he only wishes for success, the first setback will crush him. But if before starting he has been hearing repeatedly, failure is a step in the process. Persistence opens doors. Small beginnings can grow into greatness. when setbacks come, his faith will remind him, this is not the end, it is part of the journey. That faith is not from wishing, it was built by repeated truth. Look at how people break bad habits. Someone may wish to stop smoking or wish to stop procrastinating, but wishing has no power to transform. What brings change is hearing repeatedly that discipline is possible, that self-control is within reach, that their life can be better. The more they hear it, the more they believe it, and the more they act on it until it becomes reality. Truth repeated becomes the foundation for unshakable belief. The first time you hear it, it inspires you. The second time, it strengthens you. The third time, it begins to sink deeper. The 10th time, it becomes part of you. The 100th time, you no longer just hear it, you live it. That is the mystery of faith. It is built by repetition, not by wishing. Wishing makes you hope for a better tomorrow, but faith makes you build towards that tomorrow. Wishing leaves you passive, waiting for something to happen. But faith makes you active, knowing that truth has already given you strength to act. And the only way faith is born is when truth is hammered into your spirit over and over until you no longer doubt it. Think of someone learning to ride a bicycle. On the first attempt, they are shaky, they may fall. But if they repeat the process again and again, hearing the encouragement, keep going, you can balance, don't stop, soon their belief grows. They start trusting themselves, and before long, they ride with freedom. If all they did was wish, I hope I can ride, without repetition of hearing and doing, they would never master it. Faith is the same. You must hear truth consistently. You must surround yourself with voices that echo courage, with words that fuel your vision, with truths that remind you of what is possible. Because every time you hear it, another layer of faith is built. And the stronger your faith, the more resilient you become, the more unstoppable you become, the more you rise above the storms that destroy others. Weak believing is the reason for weak destinies. A man's life will never rise higher than the convictions that drive him. You cannot live boldly if you believe timidly. The strength of your destiny is directly tied to the strength of your believing. When belief is shallow, decisions are shallow, and when decisions are shallow, destiny itself becomes weak. Many people are not victims of circumstances as much as they are victims of weak believing. They live far below their potential, not because life denied them opportunities, but because their inner conviction was never strong enough to pursue them. Belief is the engine that powers a person into destiny. If that engine is weak, the journey of life becomes a slow crawl. Think of a car with a failing engine. It does not matter how beautiful the car looks, it cannot carry the driver far. In the same way, no matter how talented, educated, or gifted someone may be, if their believing is weak, they will keep breaking down at the slightest challenge. Have you ever met people who start something with so much excitement, but give up at the first obstacle? It is not that the dream was too big or the challenge was too great. It is that their believing was too weak. They wanted success, but they did not believe strongly enough to pay the price for it. Weak believing makes you interpret every difficulty as a sign to stop. Strong believing, on the other hand, interprets difficulty as proof that the journey is worth it. Consider the story of two students preparing for an exam. One believes deeply that he can excel if he works hard. The other doubts himself and keeps saying, don't think I can pass. Both sit in the same classroom, both have access to the same notes, both write the same exam. But when the pressure comes, the one with strong believing fights through nervousness, while the one with weak believing crumbles under the weight of his own doubt. At the end, the one with strong believing may not have been the smartest, but he comes out with victory. This is how life works. Weak believing produces weak effort. When you do not believe something is possible, you will not give your full energy to pursue it. You will attempt half-heartedly, and life rewards those who go all in, not those who merely try. Imagine someone running a race while doubting he can finish it. He will slow down quickly, conserve energy, and probably drop out halfway. But a runner who believes strongly, I will cross that finish line, will push his body to limits he did not even know existed. Strong believing releases hidden strength, but weak believing paralyzes it. Look at the workplace. An employee who does not believe he can rise will never push for more. He will accept mediocrity, stay silent during meetings, and hide his ideas because weak believing has convinced him he is not good enough. Another employee with strong believing may not be the most skilled, but he dares to speak, dares to present his ideas, dares to take initiative. Before long, he is noticed and promoted. It was not just skill that separated them, it was the quality of their believing. Weak believing is dangerous because it does not only affect you, it influences the atmosphere around you. A parent with weak believing passes fear and limitation to their children. A leader with weak believing makes an entire team shrink in vision. A friend with weak believing can talk you out of your dreams, not because they hate you, but because their own belief is too weak to see what you see. In relationships, weak believing can destroy something beautiful. A man who does not believe he is worthy of love will sabotage every relationship he enters. A woman who does not believe her marriage can succeed will begin to expect failure before anything even goes wrong. Weak believing makes people give up on each other too soon, quit too early, and settle for less than what could have been extraordinary. Life is filled with storms, but storms do not destroy everyone. The difference is in the believing. When storms hit a man with strong believing, he says, "This is tough, but I will find a way." When storms hit a man with weak believing, he says, "This is a sign I should stop." Both face the same storm, but only one emerges stronger. Consider health. A patient who believes strongly in recovery fights harder, responds better to treatment, and often outlives the predictions of doctors. Another patient with weak believing accepts defeat too soon, loses the will to fight, and even the best medicine struggles to keep him alive. Weak believing weakens the body, while strong believing energizes it. In financial matters, weak believing keeps people small. Someone may say, "People like me can never be wealthy," and so he never even tries. He refuses to learn to invest or to take opportunities. Another person with strong believing says, "Can rise, I can prosper. My background is not my destiny," and that belief drives him to work harder, take risks, and push boundaries. Over time, the results speak, not because he had better chances, but because his belief was stronger. Weak believing makes excuses, strong believing finds solutions. Weak believing magnifies obstacles, strong believing magnifies possibilities. Weak believing settles for survival, strong believing presses for significance. If you look closely at people you admire, you will notice that they did not get to where they are by wishing. They got there by believing strongly in what was possible, even when no one else agreed with them. Even when resources were limited, even when doors closed, they pressed forward because their inner belief was stronger than the opposition outside. Weak believing is the reason many people live and die without ever seeing what they were capable of. It is not that life withheld opportunities, it is that their belief never rose to the level required to seize them. Your destiny will never rise above your believing. If your believing is weak, your destiny will reflect that weakness. But when your believing is strong, your destiny will unfold with strength, with resilience, with influence, and with impact. Right believing means aligning the heart and actions with truth. Belief is not just an idea in the mind. It is not just a feeling you carry around. Belief is powerful only when it translates into how you live, how you choose, how you act. Many people think believing is simply agreeing with something in their heads, but agreement without alignment produces no results. True believing means you allow the truth you have received to govern your decisions, to shape your habits, and to direct your steps. Think about it this way. Someone may believe in the importance of health. He may even say it every day. Health is wealth, the body is valuable. But if his actions do not align with that truth, if he eats carelessly, sleeps poorly, and neglects exercise, then his believing is only intellectual. Real believing shows in action. When someone truly believes health is important, you will see it in his choices. He will eat wisely, he will rest, he will discipline his habits. His actions reveal that his heart is aligned with the truth he has embraced. In daily life, the difference between people who move forward and those who remain stuck is not always knowledge. Both may have heard the same truth, but one aligned his heart and actions with it while the other only admired it. A student may hear that discipline and consistency produce excellence. One student believes rightly and aligns his actions. He studies daily, manages time wisely, avoids distractions. Another student nods and says, "Oh yes, that's true," but spends hours on games and social media. When results are announced, the difference is not luck, it is alignment. Right believing is not passive, it is active. It means truth does not remain an idea, it becomes a lifestyle. For example, someone may hear the truth that financial freedom requires planning and saving. One person aligns with this truth by creating a budget, tracking expenses, saving a portion of every income. Another person hearing the same truth says, "I know," but continues to spend recklessly. Both believed, but only one believed rightly because his actions were in harmony with the truth he received. When your heart and actions align with truth, life begins to produce stability. Confusion fades because your choices are consistent with reality. Imagine a builder who knows that a solid foundation is important, but decides to build on sand because it is easier. His belief was not right, even if he knew the principle. Another builder, convinced of the truth, digs deep, lays a strong foundation, and though it takes more effort, his building stands when storms come. The difference is that one aligned with truth, the other did not. Consider relationships. Someone may know the truth that communication and respect sustain love, but if in practice he insults, ignores, and neglects his partner, his believing is not right. Another person, hearing the same truth, chooses to listen, to honor, to nurture. Over time, one relationship collapses while the other grows. Belief alone is not the power. Belief plus alignment with action is where transformation happens. Right believing creates integrity. Your inner conviction and your outward behavior are in agreement. There is no contradiction between what you claim and how you live. When people see you, they can tell what you truly believe, not by your words, but by your actions. If someone says, "I believe in excellence," yet everything he does is careless, people will know his belief is not aligned. But when someone says, "I believe in excellence," and it reflects in his work, in his speech, in his attitude, then that is right believing. Let us use the example of success. Many people say they believe success is possible, but few align with the truths that produce it. Success requires persistence, sacrifice, learning, discipline. Someone who believes rightly will sacrifice sleep to finish a project, will invest in learning to grow, will endure temporary discomfort for long-term reward. Another person may wish for success, talk about it, even admire others who succeed, but without aligning his choices with the truths of success, he will keep dreaming without experiencing. Life does not respond to empty belief, it responds to aligned belief. Think of a person who believes water can quench thirst. If he sits with a glass of water but never drinks, his thirst will remain. Another person believing the same truth takes action, drinks, and is refreshed. Both believed, but only one believed rightly. Alignment requires courage because truth will sometimes demand hard choices. Truth may tell you to leave your comfort zone, to break old habits, to walk away from destructive associations. If your belief does not push you into action, then it is not yet right believing. Right believing is costly because it challenges laziness, fear, and convenience. But the reward is transformation. Weak destinies are often the product of misalignment. People may carry dreams, but their daily actions contradict those dreams. They want to be leaders but refuse to learn discipline. They want to be great but avoid responsibility. They want abundance but ignore diligence. Their lives remain stagnant, not because truth was absent, but because their actions never aligned with it. When your heart and actions align with truth, faith becomes visible. People can see your conviction in your consistency. Think of athletes preparing for a race. They believe in the possibility of victory, but their belief is revealed in training, in diet, in sacrifice. Their actions are aligned with the truth that preparation brings success. By the time they stand on the track, their belief is already visible in the discipline that brought them there. Alignment also brings peace. Many live in conflict within themselves. They know what is right but do not do it. They admire truth but do not live it. This creates frustration. But when your heart and actions align, there is inner strength because you are not divided. Your inner conviction and your outward steps move in the same direction. The truth is like a map. You may hold the map, admire it, even memorize it, but until you follow it with your steps, you will never reach the destination. Right believing means holding the map and walking the path. When heart and action align with truth, direction becomes clear and destiny becomes inevitable. What you constantly hear will eventually become your reality. The ear is like fertile soil, and every word that enters it is a seed. Some seeds are seeds of life, some are seeds of death. Some seeds carry courage, others carry fear. Whatever you allow to enter your ear consistently will eventually take root in your heart and bear fruit in your life. Many people underestimate the power of words, but words shape destinies. If you feed a child with affirmation and possibility, you will see him grow with confidence, exploring life with boldness. If you feed that same child with insult and discouragement, he will shrink back, doubting his worth, even when opportunities are in front of him. Life is filled with voices, and every voice is trying to paint a picture of your reality. When you keep hearing that you are not enough, that you are too late, that you will never rise, those words begin to form the walls of your expectation. Soon, you find yourself living inside the prison of those words. But if you keep hearing that it is possible, that you are capable, that greatness can emerge from you, those words break limitations and create pictures of possibility in your mind. Think about daily life. When a person hears every day that the economy is collapsing, that nothing works, that people like him can never succeed, soon he stops trying. Even if opportunities appear, his mind has been trained to expect failure. But another person hearing every day that there is a way forward, that diligence produces results, that even in tough times doors can open, begins to approach life with courage. Both live in the same environment, but the difference is the voice they chose to hear consistently. Have you noticed how people who grow up in encouragement often become daring? They step into spaces others are afraid of, not because they are stronger, but because they heard something different. They heard you can, while others kept hearing you can't. Over time, their hearing created their reality. Hearing is not a casual activity, it is construction. Every sound you entertain is building something inside you. The danger is that many people treat words as harmless. They say, just heard it, it doesn't mean anything. But what you hear repeatedly does not ask for your permission to grow, it grows anyway. Like a song you did not mean to memorize, but after hearing it again and again, you find yourself singing it unconsciously. The same way, the words you expose yourself to become the silent program of your life. Think of a worker in an office where everyone constantly complains, constantly predicts failure, constantly magnifies problems. Stay in that environment long enough and you will find yourself talking like them, thinking like them, and living like them. But move that same worker into an environment where people speak possibility, where they celebrate progress, where they share ideas and solutions, and soon his mindset shifts. His results begin to change, not because his skills suddenly grew, but because what he kept hearing reshaped his inner picture. What you constantly hear eventually becomes the lens through which you see the world. If all you hear is betrayal and distrust, you will look at every relationship with suspicion. If all you hear is scarcity, you will live with a survival mentality even when you have abundance. But if all you hear is growth, abundance, and opportunities, you begin to interpret challenges as stepping stones instead of barriers. Look at how advertising works. Companies spend billions to repeat the same words, the same slogans, the same jingles again and again. Why? Because they know that hearing produces memory, and memory shapes decision. After hearing it countless times, one day you walk into a store, and without thinking, you choose the product they kept mentioning. It became your reality, not by force but by repetition. In relationships too, what you hear matters. A spouse who constantly hears affirmation begins to feel valued and safe, but one who constantly hears insult begins to shrink and withdraw. The words create the atmosphere of the relationship. People may forget gifts, but they rarely forget words that they heard repeatedly. This is why some individuals rise from nothing. They heard something different. Maybe a teacher looked at a struggling student and said, "You are intelligent, keep trying." That one sentence, repeated in the mind of that child, became fuel for discipline and effort. Years later, while others gave up, that child kept going because he had heard something that shaped his belief about himself. Hearing is programming. Imagine your mind as a device. What you hear installs the software. If you keep hearing weakness, your mind is programmed for limitation. If you keep hearing strength, your mind is programmed for victory. And once the program is installed, your life begins to run on it without conscious effort. This is why guarding your hearing is guarding your destiny. What you hear is silently writing the script of your expectations. If every morning you listen to news that only magnifies fear, do not be surprised when fear becomes your response to everything. But if every morning you choose to hear words of strength, wisdom, and courage, soon confidence becomes your natural posture. Think of an athlete before a race. His coach may keep repeating, "You can win, stay focused, you are ready." Those words, repeated again and again, enter his heart. By the time he steps on the track, his confidence is not only in his training, but in what he has been hearing. And that confidence often gives him the edge to push harder. The same principle applies in business. An entrepreneur who surrounds himself with voices of possibility will see opportunities where others only see obstacles. But another entrepreneur surrounded by voices of doubt will give up before trying. What they had created their reality. You cannot consistently hear defeat and expect victory. You cannot consistently hear fear and expect courage. You cannot consistently hear limitations and expect expansion. Reality bends in the direction of your hearing. The ear is the doorway, and what enters that doorway long enough becomes the atmosphere of your life. Giants of destiny are products of right hearing and right believing. Greatness does not just fall on people like an accident. It is cultivated in the soil of words and faith. Every person you admire, every story of transformation you celebrate, began with a voice that was heard and a conviction that was believed. The difference between an ordinary life and an extraordinary life is not always talent. It is not always background. It is what a person chose to hear and what a person chose to believe. Look closely at life and you will see this truth everywhere. A young man may grow up in an environment where he is constantly told he is nothing, that he will never rise, that his future is already sealed. If he keeps hearing those words, if he keeps absorbing them, soon his heart will begin to believe them, and his life will play out exactly that script. Another young man in the same neighborhood may encounter voices that tell him, "You are capable, you are strong, there is more inside you than you can see." If he keeps hearing those words, if he chooses to believe them, his life begins to take on a different trajectory. Both may have started in the same environment, but what they heard and what they believed separated them. Hearing is like planting seeds in the soil of the mind. Not every seed grows, but the ones that are watered with belief always produce fruit. When you hear the right thing and you choose to believe it, it becomes like fire shut up in your bones. It pushes you to rise above limitation. It fuels persistence when life gets difficult. It whispers possibility when others see only impossibility. Giants of destiny are not born giants. They are ordinary people who allowed extraordinary words to shape them. Think of the student who is struggling in school. Everyone says he is a failure, but then one teacher says, "You are brilliant, you just need to focus." Those words, if heard long enough and believed strongly enough, can ignite determination. That student may begin to study harder, to discipline himself to see beyond failure. Years later, the world calls him a genius. But the truth is that his giant destiny was born the day he heard and believed the right words. Your life will always move in the direction of your dominant belief. If you believe you are limited, you will never stretch yourself. If you believe you are capable, you will attempt things others call impossible. And belief is born from hearing. The question is, what are you constantly hearing? What voices have access to your heart? What narratives are shaping your expectations? Look at business leaders, innovators, pioneers. Many of them did not start with extraordinary resources, but they kept hearing possibility. They surrounded themselves with voices of vision. They read words that lifted their perspective. They heard again and again that change was possible, that progress was possible, that solutions were possible. And because they kept hearing those words, they believed. And because they believed, they acted, and their consistent action transformed them into giants. Destiny is not a mystery. It is a product of programming. If you feed a mind with defeat, the person will live defeated. If you feed a mind with victory, the person will rise victorious. Giants are created when hearing and believing combine to form an unshakable conviction. conviction that does not bow to environment, conviction that does not collapse under pressure, conviction that keeps a person moving even when everything around them says stop. Take the example of an athlete. Training is tough, the body is exhausted, but the coach keeps saying, "You can do it, you are stronger than you think, keep pushing." Those words repeated daily begin to sink deep. The athlete starts to believe them, and that belief gives him strength to break limits. By the time he wins the medal, people call him great. But the greatness was not built in the stadium. It was built in the words he heard and believed during the unseen hours of training. The same principle applies to relationships, careers, even spirituality. The voices you entertain become the architects of your destiny. If all you hear are voices of fear, doubt, and limitation, you will shrink. But if you hear voices of courage, faith, and possibility, you will rise. Giants of destiny are those who intentionally choose what they allow their ears to absorb. They filter out noise and cling to truth. They silence voices of discouragement and amplify voices of hope. Belief is like fuel, and without it, even the strongest potential remains dormant. You may have skills, you may have opportunities, but if you do not believe, you will not move, and belief only grows when hearing is consistent. This is why repetition is powerful. The more you hear something, the more it shapes your inner world. And once your inner world is shaped, your outer world begins to reflect it. Giants of destiny are simply men and women who aligned their hearing and their believing with truth, and then walked consistently in that alignment. They may look extraordinary now, but they were ordinary people who chose differently. While others gave their ears to fear, they gave their ears to faith. While others believed in limitations, they believed in possibilities. And that choice became the foundation for their greatness. It is not too far-fetched to say that your tomorrow is hiding in what you are hearing. Today, words are not just sounds, they are seeds. The ones you nurture will decide the harvest you see. If you want to become a giant of destiny, pay attention to the voices you entertain, because the voices you keep hearing are the forces that will keep shaping your believing, and your believing will always manifest in your becoming. Guard your hearing, because it shapes your believing and your living. The ear is not just a canal for sound, it is the doorway to your destiny. Every voice that enters it leaves an imprint, and that imprint becomes a blueprint for how you think, how you feel, and eventually how you live. Life is constantly speaking, people are constantly speaking, situations are constantly speaking. The question is, what are you allowing to enter? Because what you allow to enter will eventually govern you. Think about a person who grows up hearing every day that they are not enough. Those words become an invisible prison. Even when opportunities come, they step back, doubting themselves, not because they are truly incapable, but because their hearing has shaped a belief system that tells them they are small. Another person grows up hearing that they are full of potential, that they can rise above challenges. Those words shape courage in them. They step into opportunities boldly, and life begins to reflect the confidence they carry. Both may have the same ability, but their hearing has shaped two different realities. Your ears are gates, and gates are meant to be guarded. When you guard a gate, you decide what enters and what stays out. Many destinies are broken, not because of lack of strength, but because of careless hearing. People entertain gossip, negativity, fear, and discouragement, thinking it is harmless. But words are never harmless. Words carry energy, and that energy builds beliefs, and those beliefs construct the reality you live in. Look at daily life. You wake up in the morning, and the first voice you hear already sets the tone of your day. If the first thing you feed your ears is complaint, fear, and bad news, you step into the day heavy and defeated, even before anything has happened. But if you start your day by hearing words of courage, gratitude, and possibility, your energy shifts. Suddenly you see challenges as opportunities, and your mind looks for solutions instead of problems. Nothing in your environment changed, but your hearing changed your atmosphere. Many people fail to realize that environments are created by words. Sit long enough in an environment where everyone talks about failure, and soon you will expect failure. Sit long enough where everyone talks about solutions, and soon you will expect solutions. This is why you must be intentional about who you listen to, what you listen to, and how often you listen to it. It is not weakness to avoid certain conversations, it is wisdom. Because every conversation is sowing something into you, and what is sown will eventually grow. Think about a workplace. One team is filled with constant complaints, blame, and negativity. Even talented people in that team lose motivation because the atmosphere is toxic. Another team may have fewer resources, but their language is filled with encouragement, creativity, and hope. Soon that team begins to outperform the other. Why? Because what they are hearing daily has shaped their mindset, and their mindset is shaping their results. Your mind is like a sponge. It does not choose what to absorb. It simply takes in whatever you expose it to. If you expose it to anger, bitterness, and defeat, it will absorb those things until they drip out of your behavior. But if you expose it to peace, strength, and confidence, it will soak those in until your actions begin to reflect them. Guarding your hearing means you take responsibility for what you allow yourself to be soaked in. Even in personal relationships, what you hear consistently becomes your reality. A partner who constantly hears love and affirmation begins to feel secure and confident. But a partner who constantly hears criticism and insult begins to withdraw and doubt themselves. Nothing physically changes about them, but their inner world is reshaped by what they hear. This is why many relationships collapse, not because the people changed, but because the words they exchanged changed. Think about how advertisements work. Companies spend millions just to make sure you keep hearing their message again and again. They know that once it enters your ears enough times, it will settle into your subconscious, and one day you will buy without even thinking. If the world understands this principle and uses it for profit, how much more must you understand it for your destiny? If you do not guard your hearing, others will use it to shape your living, often for their own agenda. Guarding your hearing also means filtering out your inner dialogue. Sometimes the loudest voice is not outside, but inside. Many people replay old failures in their minds, whispering to themselves that they will never rise. Those whispers are shaping belief. To guard your hearing is also to challenge and replace those inner voices with truth, with hope, with vision. Because if you keep hearing your own voice of defeat, you will keep believing in defeat, and you will keep living in defeat. A young man who wants to rise in business must surround himself with voices of wisdom, vision, and progress. If he spends all his time hearing from people who have given up, soon he too will give up. But if he positions himself around mentors, around success stories, around words of resilience, he will believe differently, and his living will reflect that belief. Guard your hearing, because your hearing is the architect of your inner world. Your inner world is the script, and your outer world is the stage. What is rehearsed inside will eventually be performed outside. When you hear fear long enough, you will act fearful. When you hear courage long enough, you will act courageous. When you hear mediocrity long enough, you will live mediocre. When you hear excellence long enough, you will begin to rise into excellence. The truth is that your hearing is not passive, it is active construction. Every word you allow in is building something in you. Either it is building faith or it is building fear. Either it is building hope or it is building despair. Either it is building courage or it is building weakness. The choice is yours, but the responsibility remains the same. Guard your hearing, because what enters your ears does not just stay as sound. It becomes the substance of your belief, and your belief becomes the story of your life. There comes a moment in every man's life when he must decide whose voice will define his future. You cannot continue to open your ears to everything and expect to rise into greatness. You cannot continue to entertain words that weaken your courage and then wonder why fear is your constant companion. Life will always present you with two voices, the voice of fear and the voice of faith. The voice of limitation and the voice of possibility, the voice of your past and the voice of your future. Whichever one you choose to hear and believe will ultimately become the story you live out. Think about it. Mountains are not moved by people who keep hearing that it is impossible. Mountains move when men and women dare to believe that even impossibility can go to persistence. Storms are not silenced by those who rehearse fear. Storms are silenced by those who rise with courage inside them. Courage that was planted by words they chose to hear again and again. The ear is the womb of destiny. What you keep hearing is what you keep conceiving, and what you conceive you will eventually birth into your reality. You must come to a point where you tell yourself, enough of hearing failure, enough of hearing weakness, enough of hearing smallness. Surround yourself with words that stir greatness in your heart. Listen until the words of strength drown out the whispers of fear. Keep hearing until you believe, and keep believing until your actions become unstoppable. Because nothing changes in your life until something changes in your hearing, and nothing becomes powerful in your life until it becomes your belief. The world is not changed by men who simply desire, it is changed by men who believe. History is not written by those who wished, it is written by those who heard something different and believed it enough to act. Giants do not appear out of nowhere. They are ordinary men and women who heard extraordinary words and decided to align their lives with them. You too can step into that realm if you will guard what you hear and choose what you believe. When life tells you that you are too small, you must remember that even a spark can start a wildfire. When people tell you that it has never been done before, you must remind yourself that everything the world now celebrates was once something no one had done before. When fear whispers that you cannot, you must let faith rise and declare that you can. Because in the end, the voice you give the loudest room to is the voice that will shape your destiny. Every dream begins as a whisper in the ear. Every vision begins as a sound that enters the heart. What you do with that sound determines what kind of future you will create. Never forget that words are not just vibrations in the air. They are containers of reality. They are carrying futures, and when you let them in, they unpack themselves into your life. If you want a future of strength, then hear words of strength. If you want a future of excellence, then hear words of excellence. If you want a future of greatness, then hear words of greatness until they saturate you so much that doubt can no longer find space in your heart. You must be ruthless about guarding your hearing. Even if it means walking away from certain conversations, do it. Even if it means silencing certain voices, do it. Even if it means creating a new environment, do it. because your destiny is too precious to be left vulnerable to careless words. Your tomorrow is too important to be poisoned by wrong hearing today. Every time you allow words to enter your ear, remind yourself, I am either building faith or I am building fear. I am either constructing my future or I am dismantling it. Life responds to those who dare to believe. When you believe rightly, your steps carry power. When you believe rightly, your words carry weight. When you believe rightly, your presence carries influence. You stop being ordinary the moment you're hearing and your believing align with truth. Men may see you as weak, but what you carry within you will speak louder than their perception. Situations may look immovable, but the faith you have built from hearing the right words will cause them to bow. Many people wait for the perfect time, but the truth is the perfect time is created by perfect belief. The world does not open doors to doubters, it opens doors to believers. Opportunities do not respond to hesitation, they respond to conviction. And conviction is born from hearing and believing truth until it becomes unshakable within you. Listen, your hearing is your destiny, your believing is your future. Your living is the manifestation of both. Choose wisely what you hear, guard carefully what you believe, and walk boldly in alignment with truth. Because in the end, the world does not remember those who merely existed. It remembers those who lived with unshakable faith. So rise, refuse to settle for the background noise of limitation. Drown it with the sound of faith, with the sound of possibility, with the sound of victory. Let the voice that echoes in your heart be the voice that says, it is possible. And keep hearing it until you believe it. Keep believing it until you live it. And keep living it until the world itself becomes a witness that what you heard and what you believed has now become who you are. And when they ask you years from now how you became a giant, how you rose from obscurity to influence, how you transformed your life, you will be able to smile and say, I guarded what I heard, I chose what I believed, and my believing shaped my living. That is the secret of giants. That is the strength of destiny. And that is the power of right believing that begins with the hearing of faith.